Board meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shadeen, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hafner? Mr. Hohenschildt?
Here.
Mrs. Hune? Here. Mr. Reitnauer?
Here.
Mr. Sheets?
Here.
Mr. Stubitz?
Here.
Mrs. Wallweiser? Here. Mr. Wagaman?
Mr. Wagner is away on business, so he will be not able to join us this evening.
Mrs. Eisenberg?
Here.
8 present.
So the first thing on our agenda this evening is a recognition of an obituary minute of a staff member that worked with the school district several years ago. So I will read the obituary minute. This is for Mrs. Susan Kutz. Whereas the Board of Directors of the Brandywine Heights Area School District acknowledges the passing of a dear friend in education, Mrs. Susan M. Kutz, on December 4th, 2022. Whereas Susan Kutz served the school district with dedication and excellence as a high school secretary prior to her retirement in 1996. And whereas Susan Kutz's commitment to lifelong learning, devotion to students, and record of excellence in education and community endeavors will long be remembered and appreciated. And whereas her passing is marked by a deep sense of loss to her family and friends in the district. And whereas the Brandywine Heights Area School District would like to publicly recognize the extraordinary life and record of services of Mrs. Susan Kutz, now therefore be it resolved that the School Board of Directors of the Brandywine Heights Area School District officially honor Mrs. Susan Kutz for her role in improving the lives of countless students and citizens through her contributions to education, public service, her family, and the community. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread across the official minutes of the school district this 9th day of January 2023, with the copy sent to her bereaved family. If we can just have a moment of silence for Mrs. Kutz. Thank you, everyone. So next up, we have a very special recognition. Mr. Gordon, if you don't mind joining me up front here. and a great just way to say thank you in the most fun, lighthearted way with our students. And there are some thank you cards there from our elementary students. So hopefully you'll have a chance to peruse those through the evening or when you get a chance to at night this evening. So again, thank you for all you do as elected service members for our school community. Finally, before we get started with our official minute, we had official agenda. We have two other things. We have our student board representative reports. So Mrs. Eisenhart, do you want me to do that? Do you want to?
I got it. It's highlighted
Okay,
here.
you do.
This
Sure.
is me. Tatiana and Megan are here tonight. You guys want to draw straws? Who's going first? Or?
In the elementary school, kindergarten registration will open this week. Any child that will be turning 5 years old on or before September 1st is eligible to enroll for kindergarten next year. All information is posted on the elementary school's website. On January 13th, their PTC will be hosting a dance-a-thon in the afternoon in the ES gym. You are invited to join from 12 to 3. Volunteers will need to have clearances on file. On January 27th, the elementary school students will celebrate the 100th day of school. They will have a fun-filled day counting to 100 in many different ways and doing a lot of math activities. In the intermediate school, students have been collecting hats, scarves, and gloves that will be donated to local shelters. They will also be having a dance-a-thon on Friday, January 13th. Students have also been making cards for Mr. Gordon, whose last day is this Thursday. Both schools will be having a Spirit Week the week of January 23rd. Monday is a whiteout, Tuesday is plaid day, Wednesday is dress up as your favorite celebrity day, Thursday is Decades Day, and Friday is Western Day. The second marking period ends on this Thursday, January 12th, and 8th grade students will begin scheduling their 9th grade courses on February 9th.
January is not necessarily very eventful at the high school. Everyone's kind of sad that Christmas is over, but we will be wrapping up the second marking period this Thursday, January 12th, and the second semester will begin on Friday the 13th, where some students will be starting new classes. Our Future Business Leaders of America, the FBLA, held their regional competition at Kutztown University right before the winter break. 25 students competed and 23rd of our members placed, with 21 going on to the state competition in Hershey. Jaeger Smeltz, Lucas Boyd, Jacob Deischer, London Cerullo, Julianne Prince, Logan Schoen, Jenna Christ, Joseph Christ, and Kayla Wilson all placed first in their event. Jackson Kraft, Christina Schuster, Colin Seidel, Clarice Clyde, Braden Ambruster, and Seamus Coffin all placed second. Logan Herring, Grace Pottiger, Georgia Ray, Hannah Ray, Josh Sterner, and Nate Berger all placed third. Avery Pottiger placed fourth, and Kylie Swavely placed fifth. The underclassmen are currently picking their classes for next school year with their guidance counselors. The BH Clothing Circle will be laying out free clothing in the high school's cafeteria on January 28th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. There are baby sizes to 3X in shirts, jackets, pants, dresses, skirts, shoes, and accessories. In athletics, the teacher appreciation game held by girls basketball will be at home against Fleetwood on the 17th, and the girls basketball cancer awareness game will be held at home against Kutztown on the 23rd. Tomorrow night's game at home against Kutztown will be a fundraiser dedicated to raising money for the Harrison family, whose home caught on fire on Christmas Day, and boys basketball is ready to support. The boys wrestling team will compete in the Berks County Individual Playoff Tournament this weekend on the 13th, and the Berks County team tournaments will be held on the 27th. The girls wrestling team will wrestle at the Coal Cracker Tournament on the 21st. And this afternoon, Unified Bocce team lost both of their sets to Daniel Boone.
Thank you, ladies.
Okay, thank you so much for presenting that. And if you do have a chance and can join for the Harrison fundraiser, there's a lot of events that Megan just talked about, but that is one that we can come together as a community and support a family that tragically lost their house on Christmas Day in a fire. So, Megan, what was the date of that again? Tomorrow night. Thank you. That being said, we're going to transition. We do have a small presentation this evening. We've partnered with Keystone Sports Construction as we look at and evaluate sports fields as well as stadiums. So we're going to transition and talk about this presentation. I'm going to do the first two slides here, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Jeff Sellers. us and get us back in sync of where we were. So we started with conversations about improving our stadium and our fields with a student survey. We looked at first looking at our high school when we evaluated our ESCO project, which was in 21-22. In conjunction with a bunch of other facility enhancements, we looked at enhancing and building a new stadium over at the high school. That cost came in about $5.4 million. So that quickly shut down the idea of putting a stadium over at the high school. And primarily that was because we were looking to create some building access routes and make the facility a little bit more fluid in terms of the movement of students and fans. So we shifted this fall. The building construction committee and the administration met with a host of different companies. And that's when we decided to make that strategic partnership with Keystone Sports Construction. They've been a great partner in looking at all the different avenues of the project. And at that time, we had talked about putting the project over here and enhancing our current facility here with the track and the field. That was about 1.8 to 2 million estimated. November, December, we installed new LED lights at the stadium. If you haven't had a chance to drive through town, they're on a timer system now, so they go on in the evening right at dusk automatically, and then they shut off at 8 o'clock. It's been great. If you have a chance to see, there are community members walking track almost every night. There's kids when it was warmer last week, playing football and soccer in the stadium at 6, 7 o'clock at night, which we never would have been able to do before. So huge investment by this board and already paying dividends for the community. And in December, in conjunction with the middle school project, as we looked at doing the upgrades here, we met with the DEP because Toe Creek is a high quality stream, and that causes a bunch of different red flags and DEP involvement. So that's really the updates we want to provide tonight, and that Jeff's going to talk about next. Just shifting gears real quick from a funding source aspect, just to make sure we're talking the same thing. We are not looking to do any tax increases to pay for this. When we originally did and took loans out to improve our facilities, which included the elementary school, when we did the upgrades here at this building, the intermediate middle school, we also put some dollars aside knowing we had to do something with our stadiums. So there still is about $1.3 million sitting aside from that initial loan. We've also had some strategic conversations with partners of the school district to get some additional funding coming in. And then there's some additional upgrade dollars that are set aside, an additional $500,000 that are set aside to do some other enhancements of the facility. So there is money sitting there, and I want to make sure that we're clear that this is not looking to raise taxes to pay for this. That we're looking to use either fund balance or the dollars that are set aside from loans already taken out for this project. So, with that being said, any questions on the timeline just to calibrate us or dollars? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sellers to talk more about the outcomes of what we had with the DEP and some next steps.
I'm going to flip ahead here real quick. One thing. So thank you very much. It's great to see everybody again. Happy New Year to all. Congratulations to all you that were honored this evening. It's very exciting. So what I wanted to show you here real quick is we've spent countless hours now working with the administrative team, Ms. Potiger, Nicole, to really kind of figure out how do we bring a best-in-class facility to the school district. And as you know, we've obviously had a lot of dialogue about doing something out front here for a variety of reasons. And as you referenced with the lights there now, obviously a lot of community activity happening around that track. So Toad Creek runs along the far side of basically the driveway as you come in off the main road there and circles around. But what it does is it obviously goes off, if you're thinking about a clock, off towards 1, 2 o'clock. So really where it flows really sort of impacts the entirety of the area that is out front. So when you're going through and you're looking to do new infrastructure within the perimeter or the confines of this particular area of impact, that's where we have to engage both the local county conservation district as well as DEP at the state level to really let them know, here's what we're thinking about doing, here's what the scope of work is potentially going to look like. And we really need to get their impact as it relates to what types of requirements they may place upon the project that we would have to adhere to through the civil engineering process, stormwater management capacity, things of that nature. So all of this is done, there's been no expense to the district. This has really been us taking that ownership on as a company and a partner of the district to really investigate every nuance associated with this space to make sure that when we have the opportunity to move this forward, the project forward, all the knowns are known and we don't want any surprises. So what we've seen here is because of where this is, let me just flip back the slide here. You'll note that, let me pop off that, here we go. So just going back one circle, sorry for all this, never mind. So we had a rendering initially up here that kind of gives you an idea of what this would look like. And obviously from an aesthetic point of view, all of those things get fine-tuned towards the end. But as we move forward and had our engagements with the County Conservation District and with DEP, because of where Toad Creek runs across the perimeter of that blue demarcation line, basically for riparian rights perspective, because that is a high quality watershed area, you have to be 150 feet setback from where that is. Now, as evidence, in this prior slide, let me look here. So you'll see a lot of pictures and so forth. The school district to this point and previous has already spent a lot of investment in Toad Creek as far as putting in tall grasses and various types of trees and so forth to really preserve what that is and what it will be in the go forward capacities, which is fantastic. But when you're doing a project like this, sorry for all the flipping, basically get into a scenario where they still have additional requirements. So you have existing infrastructure out front. Obviously, that includes the lighting that has been there with the LED retrofits that are on it, as well as you have the stadium infrastructure that is there. So we've been always trying to work within the confines of that to deliver the project within that area. Unfortunately, because of what the DEP requirements are and having to have a 150-foot setback, basically where that blue demarcation line is where the far left of the track would actually have to start in order to not be impacting that particular area without massive investment in terms of being able to basically repair that area and or add additional infrastructure to make sure that high quality watershed remains intact. So unfortunately, that would force us to slide that over. So then we took some time to figure out, well, what if, just taking the existing infrastructure off the table for the moment, how can we be creative and perhaps still use this area? But because of the way Toad Creek wraps around, as I had shown you, kind of going towards 1 and 2 o'clock, as you start to triangulate this field to see if we could do some things there, we're still hampered by this 150-foot setback. So it creates a lot of challenges, and then it starts to impact investment that the school district has already made. So what we've quickly found, and through exhaustive efforts and multiple meetings with them, is that doing what we desire to do here and what the school district desired here is not the best course of action, both in terms of viability as well as financially being able to do it. That said, what we are working on right now is a sidebar project. Clearly, that track is of a lot of importance to the community at large, as evidence to what you stated before. We are working through very cost-effective solutions to be able to upgrade that track slightly, so it makes it more user-friendly. You're not tracking mud around and cinders and weeds and all those other kinds of things. And because we have the ability to do something like that, because we're going on top of what is there, we are not digging and moving a ton of earth in order to put in the infrastructure required for what the ultimate goal was. So that is something where we will be having a conversation here probably over the next week or two to talk about what that looks like and how to do it. But with Mr. Pyro's direction, very cost sensitive and friendly is the solution there. But it's going to be something that's going to achieve the objective for this area while enabling us to really kind of shift focus over to the high school, which is where we're going to be moving. I know you have a lot of notes on here. Is there anything that you wanted to touch upon that I maybe?
You hit on.
Okay, great. So just sliding over here. So really what we're doing here, this is sort of the process of what we had. What we've now done is taken our resources, both internally within Keystone, as well as, from an engineering perspective, and shifted gears over to the high school. So regardless of what was done in previous years to say this is what the dollars and cents are to put in infrastructure over there, we have a very different opinion. And we believe that we can still deliver a world-class or state-of-the-art, track and turf field that will accommodate the athletics, give the school district a best-in-class facility for youth athletics, the school's athletics, and the community at large, while working within a reasonable budget. What some of the benefits of over there, while that area is still a high-quality watershed as well, we are working with the Conservation District as well as DEP it is not as restrictive over there because you're obviously all familiar with the landscape. It's rather open. There's not a lot of encumbrances. There's no toad creeks floating around back there. But also a benefit behind the baseball field is a very large basin that has already been there, which was built really to support the stormwater for the school itself. And because of the size of that, we're deep into the investigation phase where we may be able to leverage that in whole or in part, which is a massive cost savings potential to the project in whole. So we are deep in the process right now of investigating all of those scenarios whereby within the very near term, we're just redoing a whole different set of civil engineering and stormwater management plans. We will then have a follow-up meeting with the Conservation District and DEP based upon some feedback and guidance they've already given us to say, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. We've already addressed some of your boxes. And when you go through that particular process, really the DEP, as I mentioned before, you have to allot for about 6 months to really get through their approval process. There's an administrative review. There's a technical review. Most conservation districts are friendly to the idea of doing a pre-administration review where we can sit down and really get into the weeds with them, get their initial feedback, initial assessment. We can take that feedback and incorporate that into our plans before we officially submit, which helps fast track the entirety of the project. When you sit into a high quality watershed, though, from time to time, that can trigger an independent review. So there could be a third step there, which can sometimes elongate that permitting process. So we are aggressively working through all of those angles right now. And why we're doing all of that, we know based upon what the scope of work is that we desire there, field, obviously track and other items that are there. We are building out the cost structure for that to be within the tolerance range that we've been discussing to this point as reasonably as possible, whereby we can deliver that back there. So we're sort of parallel pathing things, but our objective is by February's board meeting to have that. Basically, we had to scrap everything that we did, start over, and come back. So we are past the drawing board stage over here and running hard against that, where we speak probably weekly, just here's updates and feedback to the administrative group, knows exactly where we are. But I expect that, this time next month, we'll be able to sit here with tangible costs of what this is going to be, the real timelines based upon what DEP has described, and then some of the other considerations that were large cost drivers when you went through this exercise in previous years, the roundabout and some of the things that are there. There's some creative ways to achieve the objective without that level of investment. And we're thinking through 3 or 4 different options right now that can solve for that while being cost friendly, to the overall project. The bottom line is that that facility back there, the infrastructure, the landscape that is there is fantastic. And there's a lot of opportunity there to really even upgrade it further. Plenty of parking. It's just really making sure that the transition from the parking back to that facility is optimal, right? Both in terms of pedestrians as well as dropping off student athletes and so forth. So we're extremely optimistic that we will be able to deliver the project for you folks. And we are working within a budget, construct right now. And to the extent that it's shifting one way or the other, we're extremely transparent on what's going on there. So that way there are no surprises. But we'll know a lot more here, and we know a lot more every single day as we have these engagements. So unfortunately, it's just a long and frustrating process, but it's the state guidelines and rules and regs that we have to adhere to make sure that when this is done, it's done properly without issue. So I'll take a breath there, but that's where we've been, where we are. And again, I'd like to reiterate, this is hundreds and hundreds of man hours that we've invested in the partnership, and there's been no cost to the district to this point. This is really making sure that we're bringing you forward something that you want, and we've crossed every, dotted all the T's, crossed the I's, whatever the things may be, to make sure that we're bringing forward a sound project for you with as much fiscal conservancy as possible and oversight. So happy to address any questions, but we wanted to meet it, or they wanted me to come here tonight, just really update you because it's been a few months since we've had the opportunity to connect. But again, I think in short order, we're going to be able to have some tangible dialogue moving forward, and then next steps are really going to start to kick in and move things along. And I did on this, I'm sure you'll share this out. I've updated some of the project timelines and things of that nature. And these are sort of worst case scenarios that we've laid out there, just so everybody's aware. But really where we get handcuffed is working with the Conservation District and DEP. We can only move as fast as they move. But luckily to this point, they've been very engaging and willing to have some dialogue that other places across the state aren't perhaps as willing to do so. So all positive things. It's just a process, so please bear with us.
Questions for Mr. Sellers? Yes. I think sort of lost me. I don't know if anybody else told you or not, but I'd like you to go back to what is being planned, if anything, now at the middle school with the track you talked about. Is that just an upgrade of the existing senior type track?
Sure. So what we have the ability to do is, because basically what we want to do is put down a surface over the existing cinders that are there.
What kind of surface is that?
So this is probably going to be a combination of asphalt with like a tennis court type of surface over the top of it, so it'd be extremely smooth and walker friendly. We're looking at that as a primary option because that is the most cost effective option to achieve that. That goal would be sort of option one. And because we are not moving any earth, we are actually working within an existing footprint. We don't have to necessarily, abide by what we were doing, what DEP would require if we're actually moving earth. So the objective is, we had discussions about putting a track down right on that surface, and there are some issues related to DEP that sort of create some challenges there. But when you're working within asphalt and within tennis court resurfacing products, the rules are a little bit different, and it affords us the ability to upgrade that very cost sensitive, achieve the goal while looking at the larger project with the campus.
So other than that, is there anything else that you are looking at to
At the,
change?
no,
So in other words, it's just an upgrade of the track in the existing location
yes, sir.
with the DEP
Correct.
approval
Correct.
of that.
Yep.
And is there a preliminary cost now to do it?
We are actually, I've sat down with my guys today. Within probably about 7 to 10 days, I will have that actual number.
Okay.
So these are two separate projects in my role.
Okay.
And the holidays slowed us a little bit with people being off and so forth. But I was told today that we'll have a number for that specific piece soon. And we're parallel pathing these internally on our end.
Okay. So Mr. Panican, so now we're talking about if you were to go forward to improve the track in the location it's at, if no trees, whatever. So there's a cost associated with that. We also have a cost associated with the platform that we were talking about going into. Do we have any numbers? What's that stand?
So that
Any design for that?
that actually got put on the back burner.
But isn't that an ADA requirement?
There are things we do upgrade that so we make it more equal.
Right. So
We do not. We have to
do we have any initiation of the preliminary designs or anything like that we would include on how to come up with it for the down?
Yeah, we haven't moved too much further than that.
Okay, so the middle school understands the cost of the rehabilitated track and eventually the stadium upgrade for the 5.8 track. Okay, so that'll be one fixed cost for that. And the remainder of what we want to do is for putting it in turf field and what have you, it moves to the high school. Yes, sir. Okay. And you will be giving us all those figures also.
We're deep into bringing them forward as fast as we can.
All right, thank you. So we're talking about two different areas now, not
Yes.
just one.
Yeah, so within my organization, they've broken these out into two separate projects. So I've got a group of engineers doing one thing and a separate group doing another. The other one at the high school is obviously more complex. This is actually rather easy. It's more of a pricing exercise than anything. And again, we're looking to do, the goal here is to make this more user friendly to the community because it really is just a walking track. It's not really a competition track or anything. It's to upgrade it and make that a more friendly experience, right? So we're looking at, what's done. And one thought was, hey, what if we just asphalt that? But then when you do something like that, there's some regulations where that's not permissible. But if you put tennis surfacing on it as an example, then that's fine. So there's all little kinds of rules and regs that we're working around to achieve the objective in the most cost-effective way possible.
And I should assume then that whatever the surface is going to be for that track there, it would not impede any reason to allow the runoff to go into Toad Creek.
No. No, it'd be the existing infrastructure the way it is, and actually the grading of it, a normal track, normal scenarios this would be, you typically from outside in have a half a degree of slope. So any water that would hit that would actually channel.
Oh, so that sounds like you said on the inside.
Correct. Right. So no impact to Toad Creek. We're staying away from that.
Okay, good. Are you going to be moving over to the high school with anything now to show us?
No, I was really just an update right now. Basically, what you can think of visually is we've shared in the past some renderings. I think I had it on there. I'm not sure what happened, but the end of the day, the concept is the same. The rendering's the same. It's soccer, it's the sports that we discussed with the track going around that. And then as we get that dialed in, peripheral conversation we had around any other types of small amenities that you may desire, from ball stop systems to small fencings or whatever the case may be. But those are nuance and small costs relative to what we're trying to achieve. And those are sort of the 9th, 10th, 11th hour where we wrangle those things in, and it's based on desire.
Okay, one of the biggest things that we tried to accomplish originally at the high school was to get an access from
Mhm.
I guess the east side of the school building now,
The bus roundabout.
coming a bus around on the back of it. Is that still an option that you're looking at, or?
We are looking at it.
I thought
That is a
cost-
monster cost driver.
Right, so we could identify that as one of the prohibitive things for going open.
Correct.
But if we still need some kind of access, are you looking to expand the existing parking areas then? And somehow wrapping it around the ball fields or something? Or
We'd be looking at the other side of the building, which I understand there's some challenges there because of like that big, is it an old oil tank that sits there and some trash and so forth. There's a variety of options that we're exploring right now. That's the short answer. I can't give you a definitive, we're going path A or path B. That path, starting on the east side where the current bus roundabout is and building an access and a roundabout back there is wildly expensive, number one. And really, what is the cost benefit associated with that other than, hey, I can bring in and drop off the athletes from the other school a little bit easier, right? You're not solving any parking considerations there. So it's not that it can't be done, it can. It's
you're talking about where the tank is now.
no, and the
You're
other
talking about
the original thing. So that's a very expensive endeavor. It just comes down to what's the cost benefit associated with that. We're going to spend that money, and what are we solving for? Having a bus come in there to be able to just drop off some students, have them easy access to the gym as well as the fields. Well, that's an expensive proposition if that's the only use case you're solving for. Whereas there may be other ways to achieve that similar objective, which is access to the gym where parents aren't blind to them going around that corner, but do it in a more friendly manner. So we're exploring a multitude of ways to achieve that objective, but we have to be budget conscious to where we currently are working with and how we allocate those dollars to the project specifically, and then circling back to how do we achieve that piece of the puzzle.
I think I recall there were perk tests done for that particular rod going on the back there.
That was not done by us. There
No.
were at one point in time. We've looked at those to the extent. I think we had some data around that, not much. There were. That was not. We were not involved in that.
But if we were to decide to try to go that way, we would have to have that information
Correct.
and take care of any of the drainage and what have you.
Yes.
Would that then be your plan, maybe set it towards that field that you were talking about there?
We would have. I will defer to my engineers to determine what is, because it's easy for us to sit here and be like, okay, we can do it and we can move it this way. It really comes down to our engineers and our executive team engaging with the conservation district and DEP, because they're going to dictate where it's going. It's not us saying, here's 3 or 4 ideas, which one do you want us to go with? It's them saying it has to be this way, and now we figure out how to work within their directions, because otherwise they won't permit.
Okay, well, go back to that original slide. I think it was the product that we could.
This one?
Okay, yeah. Maybe the next one. I thought it was someplace that we're going to be looking at next month, maybe trying to approve this for you guys to go ahead.
So our objective right now we're running against is at the high school of being able to bring forward basically a contract ready number that we've done the work, everything that I've described at this point. This is what it's going to cost. This would be for the track and for the field specifically. Now, the other items we would have to discuss further as it relates to additional roadway infrastructure and things like that. We are working specifically on the field and the track.
Okay, but without knowing whether or not we're going to be able to do that, I think I would be reluctant to try to come up with any kind of approval from any based on not having the total cost of all the items that we require. I mean, does anybody else disagree with that?
So I absolutely hear what you're saying. And I think to believe the next step is I'm going to bring the committee back together now.
Yeah.
Because there really wasn't a lot of traction with data
Right.
until this point. Now, as you heard Jeff saying, there's going to be a lot of things that start coming in pretty quick.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah.
I see a payment schedule being presented up there right now. And target completion date March of 2024, that's next year for the way. This has to be all inclusive for us to really make a funded decision and make sure that our budget is available. As you said, we're not going to raise taxes to complete any of the work. We have the funds, but they're limited. They're not unlimited. So, I myself would be very reluctant to try to approve any kind of payment schedule or without having final, not to exceed cost of everything. Everything. And until then, I think we maybe sort of jump back a little bit sooner than we should.
Mr. Huffman, one thing just to make mention, I mean, this is just a presentation at this point.
I understand,
You know,
but we've had other presentations, and I'm seeing a payment schedule up there, and whoa, wait a minute, that's all. But this-
That is just simply up there, just so we're clear
Yeah, I mean,
of how things are done normally.
Right.
At the end of the day, we structure these on a per deal basis. That was just more for, broadly speaking, this is how these things
right,
go along.
when you see the 1, 2, 3, 4 things of project timeline working, board approval of post-owned agreement February, that's next month.
Mhm.
What does that include for you?
That includes the dialed in contract ready pricing for the turf and the track.
But not any other access which we may need.
At this point, that number does not.
So then it's,
And I think, well, no, I think that's outside the scope of the project.
having met in the field and knowing what we are trying to accomplish here, it will end up being, I think, need to be quite
I want to echo what Mr. Hefner's saying. I feel a little bit like the news from the DEP and the conservation districts that created that blue line, to have no blue line on that grid is a major monkey wrench in our vision. We were well down the path thinking we were close to an approval, and they put up a major roadblock which forced us to take not just 1 or 2 steps back, but a whole bunch of steps back and then do a loop around, changing locations. So I'm with you, Mr. Hefner, in terms of the timeline. It feels like we're trying to stick to our old timeline a little bit, which is appreciated in so many ways. But I'm not sure, and I think this is what Ken might be saying, I'm not sure it's realistic. I think the steps back that we are being forced to take because of the diagonal line there and change of locations creates some additional rework. And the other thing I'm feeling, particularly if we now take a different approach to the middle school track, again, I don't disagree in any way about what's been suggested, but I just wonder if it isn't an interesting time for some quick community input. And the staff in this building and around our district that use that track for phys ed class and sports, and as I said, the community who's using it, have we checked in with all of those parties to say, hey, time out, what our game plan initially was is now snafu. We have a new game plan that we really want to move aggressively on. Do we still have all of the right input before we apply a new solution? So those are 2 things. One is I agree with the comprehensive kind of view, and that impacts the timeline. And 2, I just want to make sure we're getting good community and district faculty input on how that facility is and could be used, and does that align with what you're suggesting? In other words, what are the business requirements, and make sure that as you propose solutions, that they're aligning to those business requirements.
I appreciate what Liz is saying too, because I was thinking of actually kind of last and I'm concerned about your line and having it be that close to the edge of the track that you're supposedly putting tennis net type traction on, because I know as a coach, our throw-ins and everything are off that line. So now you're gonna have kids in swings
Right,
that
so-
are gonna be trying to get a grip on a surface that isn't made for those kinds of spikes.
So this area here, so these are 2 separate things where we're going here. So when we look as we pivot over potentially to the high school, right? With the track and turf of it, that sidebar. So what is here was the rendering in order to be able to say, okay, if we were to put a turf field inside here and within the track, this is, you know, what we're going to be up against. Now, what we're all simply trying to solve for here is that is still going to remain grass, and where those lines are and how they're chalked out or painted onto the grass for the soccer sports and so forth are going to be as they currently are. Okay. Now that, sure. So there's a variety of surfaces that you could put around there to improve that. But at the end of the day, they're all going to be perhaps not as friendly as the cinder that is there. But I guess the question I then pose is, what are we solving for? The goal, as we've understood it, was to make the track. Oh no, 100%. And again, we're trying to we're trying to bring forward solutions that achieve what we've been directed as is. Here's what we want to do. We want to make the track as friendly as possible to the community at large and the walkers. And currently, it's fine for what it does, but also it has its hindrances. How do we, in the most cost-effective manner possible, upgrade that for the benefit of the community and the walkers that are out there? And clearly, you don't want to impact athletes. We're all about safety. There's no doubt about that. And again, that's just one scenario that we're looking at. That is the most cost-effective way to go about doing it. Now, I think that, again, this is a depiction here as well. But where this would be is we would sit in the exact same footprint of where the current track is. So we're looking at the options that are there, again, to bring forward whatever is the most cost-friendly to the school district. You guys approve everything. We're just working with the direction to achieve that goal, if that makes sense. Now, as it relates just to the timeline, so I don't want to create any agita around that, right? So what we've kind of outlined there is this is how the sequencing of events occurs, right? Now, we appreciate and we're open to everything you've described, and that's how we like to do these projects. At the end of the day, it has to be 100% buy-in. Everybody's got to be happy with what the end game is going to be. So we're to make sure that everybody understands what's going on and how these things have to occur. So I just simply updated those based upon our last meeting to say, okay, if this, we're working hard to be able to bring forward that number for next month. Sure, guys, you folks, you look at it and move forward or not, right? But at the end of the day, it's to say, okay, in order for any of these other things to happen, you know, we've got to get to a starting point. But what happens is that permitting process is the starting point. That is 6 to 9 months, and that's what has to occur, and all the civil engineering work, et cetera, that goes behind that in order for the project to even mobilize it and happen there. So we're trying to get to a starting point where the financial implications are known based upon the project. Now, yes, there may be ancillary things that you all want to consider, additional access roadways and so forth. Any and everything is doable, but it's also what are the financial implications opposed, you know, to doing one of those. So there's several paths that we can go. We can focus on the turf and the track, and then once we have that going, we continue to collaborate on these ancillary items and bring forward those numbers. But until we have a definitive, clear path, we 100% want this as an example of this bus, that goes around there. Well, that's significant time to work with the conservation district, so forth, to even bring forward the material cost. There's a lot that goes. It's not as simple as calling up, "Hey, Mr. Paver, what does this cost?" It's very intricate.
Yeah, I understand.
But to put a hard number against that, we can continue to walk down that path, and that just slows the rest of it down. Well, versus working in harmony to achieve that.
But what I think you're saying is you're willing and able to now just go over there at the high school and say, we're going to put a turf field here with a track around and all the ancillaries as far as the sports stadium that we're talking about in the sports complex or whatever. But you're not ready to tell us, how do we get to it?
Well, I mean, that could be something as simple as just doing
It's not
improvements.
that simple.
No, hold on. Okay. That could be as simple as just doing improvements inside the building where we're not going to be incurring all those land moving, excavation, and paving costs. Maybe it's just as simple as adding in a couple of gates within the building to correct traffic as it's going through. And you can have people that are special needs or incapable walk handicap be able to park out front and then just navigate through the building.
Well, we did a thorough walk down of those particular items, and Mr. Conacher recalls, I'm sure he does. We did a thorough walk down that we came to the conclusion that this part and that part, this might work, this may not work, but we still never came to a total conclusion how much it was going to cost. any of those things. You just don't-
I'm willing to bet that 2 or 3 gates, maybe as many 4 gates.
No.
A large part of
walking through the building.
Yeah, but a large part of the navigation through the building was because there was concerns that there was going to be damage done inside the building.
Well, we looked
Right.
at that, putting up gates and access to the bathrooms and everything. You know, we looked at that, and that would have been sort of minimal as compared to the other things that we felt we need.
We did look at that for access, we looked at that for access.
Right. Right,
Not for access.
but we didn't look at it for access as far as the boat, the turnaround, what have you, which became extremely expensive by the call. That's not wrong.
Moving, like as in moving the driveway to the back of the building.
Yes.
Yes, I'm saying that, but I mean, if we just utilize the existing structure as it stands with the existing roadways, and we just have people navigate through the building.
I think we're like, the track right now is usable as it is. Upgrading the track doesn't change its usability, right? It just makes it more friendly to what we're using it for. So I think putting the track in at the high school, we can worry about the access. I mean, it is what it is right now, and we're surviving it. So it may not be what we
Well,
exactly
then
want,
that's certainly a different approach. You can just say, let's fix it, put the fuel in there, and we'll let people just walk from the parking areas that we talked about is quite a distance, and ADA access and visibility of the students being dropped off, which was a major concern at the time. If you're saying we don't need all of that, that's
No,
it.
I don't mean that. I just mean, I think that we're getting a little bit down the track. I think if we let Mr. Sellers come back to us with a presentation that we can discuss, because we're not going to come to a solution right now without any of these.
Okay, that I'm saying, I hate to see a February approval of the contract.
Yeah.
So
That's not gonna happen.
let me kind of try to wrap this because everyone has really good thoughts, and I think a lot of thoughts and concerns are exactly what the initial conversation that we had, which is a lot of new information, repivoting, need to have all the facts. And so, even though you can't read it, my notes here today, what I want to do is get the construction community out. Right? As I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of things. We're going to do that through the month of February. The goal, hopefully, is to be able to bring some numbers to the board in February. I don't want to force anything on anyone to feel that we can pressure to make a decision. So we will not try to make that decision in February. We'll let it ponder, do a presentation, do a presentation, and then we can spend some time back to that, and then probably target for the March to get all that. And that's a loose time limit. So we can make sure we have all those data points so that when that final number comes, you're making a decision that is knowing all.
I would certainly appreciate what you're suggesting, as far as doing what the stadium and the track over there and what that would encompass as far as that and cost estimate for that. That's fine. Okay, but there's other and some of the things that we discussed about an agate component. And you still have to come to some conclusion with that, and that's going to have a cost. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Okay.
Realistically, I think Mr. Sellers is putting on. He's been giving us all the information that we've been asking for, so I don't doubt he's going to come back with a fairly comprehensive project. But it really does fall on the construction committee to let him know what information he wants to bring to make sure that we're comfortable.
That's what I'm trying to do.
No worries.
And I would encourage that group, when they get together in partnership with you, not to be short-sighted about improving the field in the back of the high school and not at all considering how do people access it. So the whole point of improving the backyard of the high school is so that we can now host high school events and competitions back there. Well, it's great to host stuff back there, but if spectators and refs and staff and concession and all that isn't part of that thinking, and that's where it's going, then it seems really short-sighted. So I would just encourage you to keep working together, but to include these access and usability and functionality type issues.
What I will say is I concur with everything that's been said here. We're clearly going to continue to collaborate and do our best. As it relates to the access, at school districts every single day, multiple times a day or whatever, your main parking area is out front of the school and to the side. To then get around to that is amazingly accessible relative to what others endure. My kids' school district included where they got to walk around buildings to get there. So
Well, then,
I know everybody gets, you sort of, if you get focused on what you have, you should appreciate the access you do have, because it's really not that
well,
bad.
then we would expect you, to the side of the sports infrastructure itself to start looking at something like that also.
Let's do this. We're going to set up a meeting. We're going to get the construction team together. But I think what's important is that we almost reset or revision the meeting like we first did in middle school. Stay here. And it sounds like make sure that all of this costs are included. Let's set that meeting first, even though you're down half of the best.
Well, what we're doing needs to be done regardless. And this is just the other piece of it, whether it's part of it or not. But what we're doing has to be done for the main piece.
That's the way this construction committee members are involved in that conversation. And then we can take the next steps of cost, taking things, and then come to the final number.
Yep.
Do some public presentation, that, and the questions, get feedback, and then come back.
Exactly. Yep. Yes, sir.
Any asphalt paving in this contract, that's tied into like the asphalt index goes up, we eat that, or do you have that work?
So in our agreements where asphalt's involved, there is an asphalt index clause. So 6 months ago, it was way higher than this today. The thing to keep in mind, which is around that index, though, when you're thinking about asphalt in general, it's the index, let's just say it's a particular number. The actual impact to the cost of the project is a fraction of that, because it's only applicable to certain components within the asphalt that really cost drive these types of projects. So it's not like, oh, it went from 6 to 8 or whatever it is. It actually went from 6 to 6.1 as it relates to what we're doing here. So we can take that offline. I can kind of educate on the specific pieces of the materials that are impacted by that index. But yes, we do tie it to that so it's transparent. You know, if it goes down, fantastic. We all win.
Mr. Ellis, thank you for joining this evening.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I look forward
Set
to
up a
chatting
date.
again. Thank you for the robust dialogue as always. And we'll talk to you soon. Be well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Is there any public comment relative to the public agenda tonight? Come on up, Mr. Houston. You just state your name and your township, right?
Sure. My name's Mike Houston. I'm a resident of Long Swamp Township, and I am here on behalf of the Brandywine Girls Softball League. I am joined by Steve Geisel in the back corner and his daughter Jordan, who is a player within the softball league. So we simply wanted to make introduction to the board members, the ladies and the gentlemen that are involved in the board for the donation of the lights that is on the agenda later tonight. Some of you may or may not know that the Brandywine Girls Softball League is a nonprofit organization where obviously fundraising, volunteering, donations all play a huge role in our liveliness, in a sense. So we have been working towards lights to put on the Girls Softball League behind the Topton Pool for many, many, many years. And we're not even halfway there. So when I happened to be driving by the other night and I heard wind of the new lights on the track, and I reached out to Mr. Pottinger on New Year's Eve, I think it actually was, and he took my call, and I questioned him as to the viability of us essentially partnering with the school in, purchasing or acquiring those lights. And Mr. Pottinger said that he would speak to the board members or handle it however he may. And I see that it's on the agenda tonight for a donation, which is greatly appreciated. We are very thankful for that opportunity to partner with the school district to ultimately give the kids what we've been working towards for many, many years. So I simply wanted just to say hi. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I just wanted to say thank you for considering it as a donation. Hopefully that decision is agreed upon and passed on our behalf. So that's it. I just want to say thank you, and we're greatly appreciative for the efforts. So, anybody have any questions? Or?
Just a quick question. Are you geared up to do the transport across the street there and get it all installed?
Yeah, so I probably should have said, so myself, I'm a board member. Steve is a board member. We have started making preparations and seeking means to get that equipment off the school property. That was ultimately going to be one of the questions I had, was what type of time frame are we looking at to get it off the school property and stored at our own facility or on our own property, whatever that may be. But yeah, we have started to look into the transport of the equipment, removing it from the school's liability. And then, we've actually had a couple companies offer some poles, some electrical work. So this kind of sparked a whole wildfire of flurry and activity, which is great for us. And some of the other local companies and local entities around the area realize that, hey, this is obtainable now for us. And they've offered up some volunteering and some efforts and some manpower. So to answer your question, yes, we do have the ability to get those off the school property. I would say in the near future, depending on what time frame the school would like them off. I mean, we don't want them vandalized, so I don't want to leave them just laying around too long. But we're this is like a spark to a wildfire for us. This is something that we've worked towards for many years, and it's achievable. So
We joked while you were talking, midnight tonight should be fine.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I got guys
Offer
waiting outside.
When Mr. Houston connected me, I just thought it was an awesome opportunity to give back, support another organization that gives directly to our community, but most importantly, our students. And so, just so everyone is aware, those lights were going to be scrapped for recycling. So this gives new purpose and new life to them by doing this. And it is in your agenda as H1 tonight, just for your reference.
I'm just curious if our solicitor might be suggesting that we had some kind of agreement that we held harmless for any condition or after the fact.
You're protected under the Political Subdivision Source Claim Act, so you have that protection already.
Okay.
Good question.
Now I know how to vote.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. And just one other question on a totally separate note. As far as the stadium update, I'm not going to go into that whole thing, but how I own a land surveying firm and a land development firm in Allentown. How do I find out about jobs that the district has for, land planning and stuff like that? Where is there an area on the website, or is there somewhere where I can go and just keep updated on anything that's coming down the road to potentially offer my company services?
So usually when there's bigger projects, we'll put those on the business on the business side of the website. Yeah,
Okay.
that's usually where RFPs go. That
Okay.
sort of thing. Often we'll put those announcements out to the community either on the front page or through an email. But the RFPs sit in the business office section of the website.
Okay. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on that because I'd be very interested in obviously partnering and then subsequently donating some of my office's time back to the school district as a thank you for everything.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
We have it
It's
in the agenda under BH1, under B, the section B and H1.
I know in the past, like when we had principals and different things and our family was here, we could just motion, bring it up and things won't have to wait.
We could.
Am I wrong? I don't know.
No, but I mean, realistically, it's in the it's in the business
Oh, okay.
operations report, so we'd have to motion and second for that, and then cut that
But
out,
do you want-
vote on that, and then it would be first.
The reason we usually do the personnel is because it's the very last thing. And we move it forward.
We don't need to stay through the decision part, right? Okay. Yeah. Mr. Partinger knows me. Wallizer does too. I'm going to be right down the hall coaching the girls basketball. So
That's
you
right.
need to send Brian down. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the Board of Directors report. Could I have a motion to approve the items under the Board of Directors report?
No.
Right now.
So a couple items under Board of Directors report. We have the meeting minutes. There were 2 meeting minute adjustments that were made this morning. So if you had looked at them previously, just know that there was just a couple. It was a name change here and there that had to be done, minor, but just want to make sure I point that out. Any other corrections to the meeting minutes that need to be made? In regards to policies, first reading policies, there's 4 new policies. Really no substantial changes. 818 contracted services. When you open that up, you'll see a lot of different wording changes. Really all that changes are relative to clearances and what contracted services have to do relative to clearances to work in the school district and defining direct contact with children, those sort of things. 819 suicide awareness, that does have some updates. Basically, that's the new updated PSBA recommended policy. So when you open that up, you'll see a bunch of bold statements that are added in there. But again, that's the new PSBA one to be most up to date with the law. The other 2, again, no really substantial changes there. And no updates or any feedback for the second reading policies that I received. So at that point, those will stand. I'll turn it over to you for committee reports, Mrs. Eisenhart.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I just have a couple of quick updates. There was no BCIU Board of Directors report in December, but because I was absent from November's Brandywine Board meeting, I did just want to follow up. Early November was the election, of course, and the BCIU does a really nice handout. I'm going to share this, Mr. Pottinger, with you if you haven't already gotten it. And I would just encourage you to give a copy to each of the board members. What it does is just frame up with a photograph of each of the individuals. So the Pennsylvania State Senate has 5 individuals, and the Pennsylvania House of Representatives has 8 individuals, and it puts a name with a face. And so it's just a nice little cheat sheet for those of you who might be interested in doing any kind of advocacy or committee of legislative action type coordination. So helpful little handout. I'll get that to Mr. Pottinger. I have a handwritten note on it, so you may want to get a clean version, but and then just by way of updates from the BCIU in general, organizationally, there's been a restructure as a result of the announced retirement of Donna DiLoretta, who is a long-term BCIU employee and who served or is serving as CFO and COO. So very top of the house, big impact and ripple effects. Donna's retirement will be effective, I think, in June or July, but her last day will be in May. And so months in advance, we're working as a board and as a leadership team to make sure that the puzzle pieces are in place and that there's no adverse impact financially in particular, but also just from a leadership perspective at the IU. In fact, there's already been some restructuring. Rob Rosenberry, who some members of this board have met several years ago, he came and did a presentation when we engaged the IU in some human resources consulting support. Rob has been named COO. Alexis Luckhart, who had worked for us, has been put in charge of an additional piece of HR. And Lucille Gallus, who worked for Donna DiLoretta, the CFO, has been promoted to head the financial arm of the organization. So essentially, they're taking 2 inside leaders and replacing one, Donna DiLoretta, and then they're backfilling for some of those positions. Those positions have been posted, and in fact, offers have been made, and the board later this month will vote to approve those candidates. So just neat to see that despite the fact that we will be losing a long-term, very highly valued leader, that there's a good depth of bench and bench strength to backfill those positions. And then the final thing, this is just a little side note. I received a quick note today as a board officer from Dr. Hackman. So Josh Shapiro, the new governor of Pennsylvania, has named former Berks County superintendent to be Pennsylvania's Secretary of Education, Dr. Khalid Mumin, who ran the Reading School District for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I think, through a very tumultuous time financially and through restructure and all sorts of stuff, and really turned a corner, helped Reading School District turn a major corner. So very exciting for Berks County to have someone we know well take on that leadership role at the state level. So more to come, I'm sure, on that, but that was just hot off the presses news as I read that email right before I came tonight. So anyway, that concludes my report. The next meeting of the Board of Directors is January 19th, I believe, the third Thursday of this month.
BCTC, Mr. Sheets?
Thank you. BCTC met on Thursday, December 15th. We held our reorganization meeting. The nominating committee unanimously recommended that Mr. Robert Heckman and Ms. Karen Freelander take over the positions or continue their positions as chairperson and vice chairperson. They were unanimously voted into those positions. Relatively light meeting. Otherwise, really only thing of note is we're purchasing a used crawler loader for our heavy equipment operation course. We were able to use $100,000 for Perkin funds, so we only had to have a $25,000 hit to our general fund, which of course was budgeted. Our next meeting will be held at the East Campus on Wednesday, January 25th. We will be getting there a little bit early so we can check out the house project, which is always a big deal at BCTC. The students build a new house every year and a half. So it's going to be nice to see how far along they are with that project at this point. That concludes my report at this time. Would you care for me to talk about the? Okay, that would be awesome. Okay. There is actually nothing to report. The Negotiations Conversations Committee did not have a meeting. However, with the upcoming budget meetings and such, I will be reaching out to the committee members, trying to set up a time that works for everyone so we can all get in and have a conversation. And hopefully I'll have something more to report next month. That concludes my report. You're welcome.
Berks Earned Income, Ms. Del Guerra.
All right, thank you. So we actually met on Thursday, December 15th as well. Becky Iannelli, who's their executive director, presented their year-to-date financials as they run on a calendar year. So she presented those as well as the upcoming budget for the 2023 school year, which is a relatively small budget, but they do collect the EITC, Earned Income Tax. They also reviewed some policy changes and also did her annual review. So that's all I have to report. The next meeting is March 30th.
Sorry about that. Thank you for your report, Mrs. Walliser.
February 21st. Just like you were saying. Yeah, same thing.
Anything from the policy committee? And strategic planning and goals, Mr. Potiger and I will meet this month to discuss that.
I have mid-year goals due the 20th of January, so I'll be meeting this is as of the 23rd, and then plan to be at the February board meeting to give an update to the school board where we are, status update.
And the building construction committee, sounds like we're gonna be meeting.
That's it.
Any other board discussion? Shady, you have a roll call, please.
Mr. Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Reitmeier?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Studitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser?
Yes.
Mrs. Evans?
Yes.
8 yeas, motion passes.
Thank you. On to business and operations report. Can I have a motion to approve the items?
Thank you. So this evening for the business and operations, we'll start off with the bills reports. That's items A through D. We have the general fund totaling $2,006,412.33. Item B, we have the food service fund bills totaling $10,523.49. We have no construction bills for this time period. For capital reserve, we have $5,000. And then item E, you're going to see we have October and November. This was kind of a goal of mine when I started to kind of do the most recent month. So we actually were able to complete October and November. So you see they're both on there, just for, time relevance. So if there's any questions on those. Also item E7, those are the budget transfers as we concluded the audit for the 21-22 school year. Just kind of a comment on that. The audit was sent out to you guys, but Bo will actually be here next month. He had planned vacation, so we told him that was okay. So he'll be here next month to present. So item F, special education pupil services. Item number 1, this is a renewal of an existing agreement to approve Sweet Stevens, Katz and Williams as special education counsel for matters related to special education. For 23-24, there is no change from the current pricing. Item number 2 is to approve a 2-year agreement, January 2023 through January 2025 with RHA Health Services, formerly known as Salisbury Behavioral Health. This is simply a referral. It's a renewal of an existing agreement. There's no cost to the district. It's simply a referral arrangement that we have with them. So item G1, again, there's no change in cost, and this is an existing agreement, a renewal for next year. It's to approve an MOU between Kutztown University and the district to allow placement of 2 Kutztown University graduate interns to be reading specialists for the district at a cost of not to exceed $15,500 per student. And then moving on to item H, facilities and maintenance. As mentioned earlier, this is to approve the donation of the previously installed original ISMS stadium lights to the Brandywine Girls Softball League. When it says originally, these were actually according to our fixed asset list, these were installed in 1980. So obviously, there's no salvage value, and they are in fairly good working order. So that'll be a benefit to them and obviously the community and our students. So moving on to the next 3 items, they're sort of related, and they go back to the 21-22 financial report and single audit. We do this sort of every year. So at year end, once we did all the accruals, revenues, and expenses, we came in with a $1.1 million surplus. When we look at our budget, there's really 3 main areas that essentially the expenses didn't materialize. And that would be the operations and transportation piece. Transportation, we know we had less bus routes, so obviously less costs. Operations, simply, mainly custodians having a light winter. And then also staffing in regards to the paraprofessionals. So those are really 3 main areas where I guess you could say we essentially save some money. So as in years past, we typically, that'll drop into unassigned fund balance. We typically assign that. So this year we're asking to move $800,000 to the capital projects fund and also $150,000 to the new integrated science standards that PD outlined in their curriculum. We'll have a presentation on that in a little bit. But I and J, you'll see we actually have to move it from unassigned within the general fund to assigned in the general fund. And then we actually have to move it out of the general fund. So it's actually a 2-part process. So you'll see it's actually broken out there. And then item L is actually to next year's budget. This is to adopt the resolution of not to exceed the Act 1 index for Brandywine. It's 4.9% for next year. This is our adjusted Act 1 index. Statewide, the Act 1 index is actually 4.1. So ours is actually higher due to the market value personal income ratio. And the next one, this is a recurring one to approve the updated current roster of bus drivers for Brandywine Transportation. And then item N, at the last board meeting, we approved the resignation of the tax collector for Topton Borough. This meeting, we are appointing Thomas Biltcliffe as the tax collector of Topton Borough effective January 1. So if there's any questions.
Thank you. Any more discussion? I, just two quick questions. On the curriculum technology item, the Kutztown University interns. So there's two, each, not to exceed 15,500. The details of the agreement, and it talks, if I'm not mistaken, about an annual term, from like August through May or June. So given that we're being asked to approve this mid-cycle or mid-year, is it reasonable for us to assume that the cost would be half, like point in time forward, or
It's for next year.
starting August 2023?
So 23-24.
Got it, okay, that's why I'm struggling, sorry about that. 2023, 2024.
So just to clarify, on the second page, it's actually right at the very top. It talks about the term.
Okay, all right, and then, so 4 days a week, I gathered from reading it, for each student, and then is it like full-time? It's not a partial day, it's a whole day?
Right now, we have how our interns work. We have them operated on our cycle days, and then they get hired through STS to sub for us on their non-intern days. So they're essentially in the building every single day of the school year. It just, every other day they get paid, and I can use them as a substitute wherever they're needed. If not, then they get additional work with their students, and then intern days, they're just treated as another reading specialist working with our intervention team. It's a great setup.
Yeah. This is one of those like outside of the box ideas where we're actually kind of recognized within the county as having a really fantastic setup with KU. So it's
And
working
they're-
very well.
They're all at the elementary.
And shared at the intermediate school. So they go,
Yeah. Thanks so much for clarifying, sorry.
And not to go down the rabbit hole, we have a similar model set up for social workers as well. At the Parker KU academic.
Fabulous. Okay. And then I have one other quick suggestion or comment. If item K, we're being asked to essentially fund the new science curriculum for $150,000 without having seen the presentation. Is there any chance that before we take a vote on this, could we push the presentation forward? Would that be okay to suggest? Yeah.
Mr. Frieda, you ready? I'm ready to go. All right. Let's throw an audible. So just the nuts and bolts as Mr. Frieda starts to get set up, the state changed the standard for science. And so
I have this meeting as well.
Mr. Frieda's done his new role working with the science department, has done a lot of work with the DCIU, evaluating what the new standards are. And when we evaluated when those kick in, they're all cycled with our curriculum cycles. They're all 2 years. And so we obviously have two options, which is try for 2 years, or we forward plan for this. And knowing that science is absolutely one of our strong suits as a school district, we want to make sure that our students are aware with the resources and actually understand them, so that when these kick in, they're already going through the training 2 years in town, but we had the material that so that's the thought process and what we're trying to do.
Oh, yes. And I will say before we start our science experiment, Ms. Delgarico, I'm a little disappointed to hear that things from 1980 no longer have salvage value. That's very disappointing to hear.
Taking that personally.
Very personally. But no, as Mr. Pottinger shared, what we want to look at tonight are the PA Steel standards, which stands for, as you can see up on the board, Pennsylvania's Integrated Standards for Science, Technology and Engineering, and Environmental Literacy and Sustainability. So that's the acronym STEELS stands for. So on July 1, 2025 is when these standards will take effect. We do want to thank PDE because this is the first time in a long time that we have had a period of time to accurately acclimate to a new program. So we have 3 years to bring our science standards, our technology and engineering standards to this new platform. This is the first time that the science standards have been updated since 2002. So there's certainly time for that update. One of the really interesting things, and I think, again, a kudos to our school district, is there are also technology and engineering standards that go with this, and they're by the grade band. So there's K-2 technology, 3-5 technology, 6-8, and then 9-12. The challenge for school districts that don't invest in STEM education is that they need to find a place to put these engineering and technology standards. Does it occur in a science classroom? Does it occur in a reading classroom? We're able to put all of these standards into our STEM classrooms that every student K through 8 takes, and many students up at the high school take. And in our initial review of the standards, they are already incorporated, although the standard language of 24.87b, however you want to phrase it, is not what we have in the standards. We're already hitting what those standards are in our STEM classrooms. So that won't be a major shift for us. Where the major shift will come for us is in the new concept of science education, which is this three-dimensional learning. And that's where the new science standards really touch base, is this 3D learning or three-dimensional learning. And that's what we're going to kind of look at today, because the 3 dimensions are do, think, and learn. So I thought let's do a little experiment while we have it. You guys all have a sheet of paper in front of you with the very easily to understand term, Typhodramus pyriipum. These are not Punnett squares, no sir. I'm sorry if you want to do Punnett squares. Yes. But the Typhodramus is a mite. And then you have boxes for healthy apples. With a pen or a pencil, if you want to put in the Typhodramus box, the first one, put an up-facing arrow. If you don't have a pen or pencil, share with a friend. If the number of these small mites increase in your apple orchard, do you think your number of healthy apples would go up or go down? So put an up-facing arrow underneath it if you think they're going to go up, down-facing arrow if you think they're going to go down. Well, then put a sideways-facing arrow. So if both of your arrows are facing up, you are correct, because this type of mite is actually what is used in integrated pest management, or IPM. This is a mite that goes after and kills other mites, those other mites who destroy apples. So as this predator mite is in your apple orchard, your healthy apples are going to increase. Less of these, your healthy apples are going to decrease. So we're talking cause and effect here. So what did we do? We modeled something. That's the do. You drew some arrows. You thought about what the connection of these two things would be. And you learned a little bit about integrated pest management. Obviously, we did this in about 47 seconds. So in front of a classroom, it would be a lot more in depth. But that's the kind of concept that we're looking at with this 3D learning. And if we go back to the previous slide, the two images I chose there really, I think, emphasize this. This is getting science education away from the teacher in the front of the classroom doing the science experiment while the kids watch, and really becomes putting the students in the driver's seat, where they're the ones doing the experimentation. They're the ones theorizing. They're the ones hypothesizing and putting this all into practice. So it's making science education much more interactive for students, and really kind of pushing that boundary from just kind of sit and get to more experiment. So, yes, sir.
I guess.
Yes.
Is there any preliminary information that students get so they can make it educated?
So that's one of the really interesting components with three-dimensional learning, being that it is all, or not all, but primarily inquiry-based. In your initial activity, you're going to guess, you're going to hypothesize. It's designed for that, and then you learn about it. But you also highlight what's one of the true challenges of the implementation for this. Everything builds. So you're going to not necessarily learn the same content, K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, but similar kinds of hypotheses. So changes in environment. So you're going to learn about changes of environment in K to 2 and 3 to 5 and so forth. So it's absolutely crucial for us to invest in this, because if our students aren't getting that foundation in the elementary grades, by the time they hit middle school, that little exercise you did will be much more challenging, if that makes sense. So from the implementation standpoint, as I mentioned, this is a 3-year implementation. And as Mr. Pottinger shared, it is off cycle with our science curriculum cycle. But what we looked at, Mr. Volker and I, is what our 3 years would look like and what we would do. We have already started this year, primarily in 6 through 12, looking at modeling some of this. Teachers are participating where they're looking at, I'm going to do a lesson in a more three-dimensional approach. There's some courses through the IU that all of our science teachers are already working through. And what we're looking at right now is where we really can focus and partner with the IU and some of our curricular resources moving forward into next year. When we hit 24 and 25, when we hit 23 and 24, that's where we're going to start rewriting our curriculum. So it's our goal by August of 2024 to have our district curriculum completely aligned to these new standards for the board to review and hopefully ultimately approve. And what we'll also be doing next year is spending the entire year doing professional development with all of our science teaching staff. And please don't think of science teaching staff as just our biology teachers and chem teachers. All of our elementary teachers who are homeroom teachers are also science instructors because they are teaching science. So we definitely want to put professional development towards them. We've already partnered with the Berks County Intermediate Unit. They'll first be out on October 9th. To do a full day professional development, which is on the Columbus Day holiday for the staff to get that initial professional development. And we're also going to be looking at curricular resources. One of the areas where I think curricular resource is going to be incredibly crucial is with our K-5 staff. As we know, our elementary teachers have an incredibly taxed and burdened day. They're teaching 6, 7, 8 subjects a day. This new approach to science is a challenge. And we want to make sure that they have a resource that's in hand that is very user-friendly, has an amount of scriptedness to it, that they're not out designing their own science projects at night when they're also working on their math lessons and their reading lessons and so forth, and can fit the time constraints that they have in the elementary day. So the earlier question of where are we looking at with these funds? Moving the funds up, what we're looking to do is in 26 and 27, we would have spent this money on updated science resources. We're looking to move these funds up to 24 and 25 so we can purchase those resources now. So 23, 24. So the staff are able to look at something that's going to work, be effective with this new style of teaching. And then lastly, in the year 24, 25, we want to have a full deployment of the resources, full deployment of the curriculum. So that has us with a year under our belts by the time the standards do ultimately change on, July 1 of 2025. The only caveat I will add to this is, since the bands are going to go to K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12, the PSSA will move from 4th grade to 5th grade. But in that 24-25 year, we'll be working on the new standards, but still taking PSSAs on the old standards. We don't anticipate that we would see any type of negative impact on that. Mr. Donato, our 7th grade science teacher, has fully adopted this three-dimensional learning already, and he's seeing positive results with his students. Most of the standards are the same. It's the way of addressing the standards that are different. But 1 year we would be, I wouldn't say fully out of alignment with the state standards, but we would be teaching on the new standards while being assessed on the old standards. And that is ultimately what I have for you this evening. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I think just, I think just some clarification on the funds. So we're essentially moving those funds up now with the intent to essentially put those funds back 2 years from now when that curriculum cycle would come up, just so that's clear to everybody.
Any other board discussion? I think.
I have a question. Is there any qualifications to be a tax collector?
Nicole, can you answer that? I don't believe in the school code. Mr. Pratt is saying no.
Is that a paid position?
It is a paid position, yes.
Yeah, so essentially you have to be a resident of that municipality for at least 1 year. You do have to get your tax collector certification.
And be bonded.
Correct, and be bonded. But really, there's not that many qualifications.
I just didn't know how that worked. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, if that's all, Shadeen, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hohenschel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hune?
Yes.
Mr. Reinhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Hefner?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhardt?
Yes.
8 yeas, motion passes.
Thank you. Superintendent's report. May I have a motion to approve the items under the superintendent's report?
So move Sheets.
Second.
Sheets and Reitenauer. Mr. Pottinger.
Couple items on the superintendent report this
Yes.
Mr. Keith?
Yes.
Mr. Tubin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser? Yes. Mr. Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
Yes.